What? Because they're fixing to call them up.
Makeup pattern sale starts soon.
That what?
Starting soon.
Don't guess, bro.
See, as they come up and start speaking, they just have like their name.
All right, folks.
Okay,
Can I get your
you gonna
hand?
put it up there?
All right, everybody. Welcome. We appreciate everybody coming here on a Saturday. This is doing DFW Deals. Who's the first time attendee today? I love it. Welcome. So if you're new here, we do this event usually every first Saturday of the month. We had to move it to the second Saturday of this month. We rotate between this location and Harley-Davidson in Fort Worth. We're all about a collaborative and abundant spirit. We want you guys coming in here and learning and networking. When you leave here, doing deals together and making sure we're helping people. The more people we have in this room, the more opportunity we have. So make sure when you're coming out here, you're also bringing some friends and some people who ask some questions that need to be answered. We're happy to answer any question. There's no dumb question here. And every month we're bringing in 2 speakers who we know are having success in today's industry. And they're just going to pull back the curtain and share what they're doing in their business. Zach?
Yeah, I want to appreciate everyone for coming out, taking time out of their Saturday to come and learn. So since you did that, I would encourage you to take notes. If you hear something, jot it down, ask one of us or ask anyone in this room. They'd be more than happy to try to address those questions for you. If you haven't already, please join our Facebook group, Doing DFW Deals on Facebook. I would encourage everybody to answer the questions before you get admitted. If not, you won't be accepted to the group, period. So answer those questions. You'll be accepted in the group, and then if you have any other questions, we can address those in the group as well. Our community has grown. We've been doing this going on 3 years now. So as I mentioned before, please join that group. As Chris mentioned, we got 2 impressive speakers, one of which is going to talk about short sales. I don't know how many people have talked to homeowners in the last 90, maybe the last 12 months. They're trying to sell their house, however, they have not accumulated enough equity to do so, or they will walk away with cash. So Michael's going to talk about what do we do in those certain situations. So I'm very excited to hear both the speakers speak. And I appreciate you guys coming out to learn more. Yeah.
Okay. I just had a quick question. Who has not closed their first wholesale deal? So we got 17 people. All right. Are there any cash buyers in here? Like legit cash buyers buying deals? We got only 2, 3. Any creative buyers? All right, that's okay. So there's more creative than cash. All right. So if you haven't closed the deal, the first deal, you probably want to take some notes, jot those guys down, get their phone numbers, get their contact information, see what they want, so they can help you navigate to closing your first deal. That's what I did. I went to a couple meetups, talked to some people, understood who they were, what they wanted, and they helped me out with finding out like what they wanted. And I'll just go out with a cold call and give me a good deal. First of all, can we do an exercise real quick? I want everybody to warm up. All right, cool. Because I'm kind of excited about today. Everybody get ready. All right, yeah, there we go.
It's a haka dance.
Here we go. All right, we'll just kind of shrug your shoulders a little bit, get ready. Yeah, there we go. Get in there. Take a deep breath. Let it out.
Well, I felt that.
Yeah, Zach, that was you. I'm just kidding. All right, but today we do have 2 very special guest speakers. Eric Vodicka is going to be going over creative. Is anybody familiar with 72 and seller finance? Okay, who's not familiar with 72 and seller finance? We got 1, 2, any more? All right, perfect. So we're going to have a really good talk about that, talk about what's going on in the market and how you guys can close more deals. All right. That's pretty much it. We appreciate you guys coming out here. Like you said, we do this every first Saturday of the month. If y'all can just collaborate and deals together, we're not selling anything. We're here to just bring value, and that's it. We want to close deals with you guys. Obviously, we do have a title company, Community National. If you guys need a title company to close that, so if y'all can bring those deals here, we get you closed. She'll help you walk you through the process, and that's pretty much it.
Real quick, Jazz, because you did ask who was new and things of that nature. I wanted to point out a few people that can help the new folks. If you guys have warm or hot leads or need help talking to sellers, Brett, raise your hand. Brett is a closer. He's closing multiple deals a week. If you guys have multifamily leads, Kylie, can you raise your hand? How many units do you own right now? How old are you? 22-year-old, 195 multifamily units here in DFW. So if you guys get multifamily leads,
Come around
that's
front
what
of
this
them.
group is about. I'm sure you'd be happy to help them and hop on the phone and pitch it go that way. You're doing dispo as well, correct? So if you guys have any deals that need dispo, he can help you out as well. So let's make sure we're getting to know these folks. We're connecting and we're doing some deals together. But now let's pile in. Who's speaking first? Jeff? Okay, let's all try to pile into this room. We're going to present in here. Please leave seats to the ladies and the owner folks. And then let's get comfortable.
Sorry.
Come on in, folks.
How do I wear this? I'll be way closer. I'm not that big.
You're gonna put it facing right? Because I got it set right here in the middle. And then are you putting this on there? Or what are you doing with this?
Don't be shy, guys. Get in here. Come on.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna hold it.
That's a lot of holding.
And don't worry if you're out there. I'm live.
Don't forget to.
Yeah.
Man, it's like church in here. You guys alive or what? Can you hear me in the back? You can? All right. Make sure if you got questions, I need to see your hand, all right? I'm one of these guys that I don't care if you're on your phone right now. Go ahead. Get on your phone, to make that text message, do what you got to do. Just do me a favor and don't disrespect anybody else here that wants to get some value, right? If you're not getting value from me, then I want you to stop listening right now. Right? The reason I want you to do that is because I want you to understand something. I want you to understand that time is money. Anybody ever heard that before? Time is money? Right? So if we're wasting time, what are we wasting?
Money.
Does anybody understand what an opportunity cost is? Anybody? Opportunity cost, what do you got?
Opportunity cost is you could be doing something else that's making more money.
Perfect, right? That's a really good example, right? So opportunity cost can go both ways in the sense that I am spending my time here, so I cannot spend my time somewhere else. And if time is money, that means that I'm buying your time right now, right? So it better be worth it. It better be worth it to get in here and listen to what I have to say or listen to what anybody else has to say because your time is money. You're here on a Saturday, you're doing this, meaning I'm saying that you are supposed to be here. You are in a room that is built different. And that's why this is the label here. Right? We're here to change our stars. It's one of my favorite movies. And if you know what that movie is, we can be friends. Right? So what I'm going to go over today is I'm going to go over a little bit about myself and how I got here because while I am extremely impressed with anybody that's under the age of 25 doing this, that is not my story. Right? I did the corporate ladder thing. We'll go over some of that. I spent a lot of time in the military. And then getting out of that, it's just been nothing but a grind since. Right? I've been saying this since I was 13 years old. I'm just getting started. That's my mentality. It's ironclad. Right? I embrace the suck, as military folks would say. Has anybody ever heard that term? What does it mean? There we go. Get in there, right? Yeah, exactly. You got to shake it up a bit, and you have to hold true to whatever your goals and aspirations are. And so, where is my thing? Yeah. So this is the first time I've spoken under my own name. And what does that mean? Obviously, I've done this before. I'm not uncomfortable in front of you guys. I actually am proud to be here and able to reach out to each of you because I get to have a conversation with each and every one of you. So when I ask you to put your hand in the air, I'm looking at you. Don't look around. Look at me. All right? I want to know who I'm talking to today. So when I ask you that question, when I say this is my first time speaking in front of you guys as my own self, it's because I've done a lot of public speaking and I've done a lot of education. I've got about 20 years of education experience behind me, which is breaking down highly complex topics and then putting them down in bite-sized pieces, or in the military and the Marine Corps, we say breaking it down Barney style. And I get that might be a little condescending, right? Because it means that you're ignorant, right? But when I say ignorant, I mean the true definition of the word, which is lacking knowledge. That's it. We are all ignorant in this room on one topic or 40, right? And somebody else in this room has that capacity to help us through that process if we are willing to get uncomfortable, which is the point today, which is what I asked you to do, right? I said, get here and get uncomfortable. Come here with some KPIs. Anybody know what a KPI is?
Key performance indicator.
Boom, right? Key performance indicator. I don't come here and just gaff off my time, because this is my time that I could be spending with my family. This is your time that you could be spending doing anything else, so make it worth it, right? Get here and meet people. And the only way that I could do that with my chaos brain was to set KPIs for myself, right? I'm going to meet 10 new people here. I've already hit my mark. Where are you guys at? Right? Did we come here with purpose today, or did we come here just to say that we're showing up for our family by being here for 3 hours and just listen to these two guys run their suck? Right? That's my question to each of you. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of that. So 15 years in the game, what does that mean? It means that in some capacity or another, I've been involved in real estate for a very long time. Real strategies, no fluff. If by the end of this you like my style, I would like to hear from you, because we have more conversations to have. If you think that I'm a little bit too rough around the edges, then you're not my style, right? And I don't want to talk to you either. And that's perfectly okay, right? You have to be able to find the people that you're going to be able to connect with and get the message from. And so that's what we're here to do today. So who is my audience? Who am I talking to today? I'm talking to everybody here that wants to know anything about real estate. But I don't know what you don't know. And so when I get a generic, overarching topic like creative finance, I could spend 6 hours up here, right? I've done the work. I've been in the trenches working this entire time. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I've lost tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I have built systems that are $250,000 in ironclad. That's why I'm here today, is because I have those things to teach and to show, right? And then at the end of this, which if you're here just to see the numbers and what it looks like to buy a creative finance deal or what it looks like to invest in it, I've got that here for you guys too. So there's a little bit for everybody here, but who is my audience? My audience is 25-year-old Eric. I've been thinking about this a lot ever since, these things came up. As I'm presenting for myself. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to 25-year-old Eric. I'm talking to the guy who did everything right, got out of the military, went to college, graduated on a Saturday, started working on Monday, and then everything fell apart again. So you build, you crush, you build, you crush. The highs are high, the lows are low. I did everything right though. Right? I didn't do drugs. I didn't do the craziness, right? I have a bad past, sure. But when I got into college, I took that shit seriously, right? And I graduated on a Saturday, started work for the city on Monday. And I still ended up holding the bag in a way, right? And making $150K a year, I was miserable, folks. Does that resonate with any of you? Have any of you worked in a job long enough and you just got tired of solving somebody else's problems? Or better yet, solving those problems and being resented for it? How many of you heard this is the way we always do it? Doesn't that shit check your woo? It gets me going, right? I'm trying to, PG-13 this best I can, but you guys understand who I am, right? So now for the clout, I've done over 50 different transactions in creative, and that's not counting any of the cash, novations, or any of the other cool stuff that we've done, right? So I've got the clout when it comes to the experience and how many deals I've done. Now, am I 22 with 200 deals done? No. But I do represent my audience, which is what I just said. Somebody that is trying to break away from the status quo. Does that sound? You guys are all here for a reason. You're all built different. That's my whole point, is you're already here. So what are the next steps? Now, the best thing about real estate is absolutely the worst thing as well, is that you can make money a million different ways. I tried to put my college brain to this, and I came up with about 70 different families are touched with one transaction, right? My mission in life when I went to college and I joined the city of Fort Worth is I actually wanted to help people, right? And I didn't understand. I thought that by working for local government, I was going to be able to do that. And I ended up resenting a lot of the things that I was working with because I couldn't stand the red tape. So when I got to the back end of that, I joined mentorships, and I spent a ton of money trying to educate this other stuff because I started binge watching Jerry Norton videos. So when we get to the next point there, I was like, well, I think I can do that too, right? So how the hell did I do it? Go ahead. So you already heard that I was a Marine for a while, right? So I got out of Chicago. I joined the Marine Corps from Dallas, right down the street here. Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was combat. Did a whole bunch of cool stuff, flying around in helicopters and shooting stuff with the 50 cal. It was a lot of fun. But then I got out, and there's no call for machine gunners, folks, right? They don't really, I need a whole bunch of other degrees if I want to go crew a helicopter for the civilian forces, right? So it's not quite the same game. But then when I got out, like I told you, I had a fury in me, right? Because I'm running from poverty, folks. If you knew anything about my past, follow me on YouTube and you get the story. But if that resonates with any of you guys, go ahead and check it out, right? Because it is really a rags to riches. And I ain't rich yet, but I'm on my way, right? And I'm taking whoever I can with me. And that's the whole point. That's the whole reason I'm here today. It's because I want to reach out and shake some souls. I want you guys to feel me today. So if we get into the creative stuff and you guys got questions, I have plenty of that content. If you have questions right now, get your money's worth, right? So what the hell is wholesale, right? I started binge watching Jerry Norton videos while I was working at the city, while I was crushing all of my tasks. I wasn't deficient on anything, but I was still sitting there on my phone for 6 hours throughout the day. That's not efficient. And they were telling me, hey, slow down. You got till Saturday, you got till next Thursday to do that. I'm like, yeah, but I don't like sitting on stuff. I don't like tasks stacking. I don't like those kinds of things. Well, you're making us look bad. I get it. So when I started watching Jerry Norton, what I liked about him the most was that he was in the trenches, right? And if you don't know who Jerry Norton is and you want to be a wholesaler, go watch this guy, right? He doesn't hide behind any. I see some heads nodding in the back. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah. He's a no bullshit kind of guy. He'll shoot you 100% straight and basically just rip the Band-Aid off and let you know that you need to get in there and do the freaking work. There's nothing in your way but yourself, right? So I had to get out of my own way too. And so I decided to make a call. Somebody called me. My buddy called me and said, hey, man, I need a house in Tulsa. I know that you're looking at some stuff. I was like, oh, I guess this is my chance. When I made that first call, you would have thought that I ran over this woman's cat, right? She was so upset. I was stuttering. I was stammering. Ooh, man, I know I can do this shit, right? And that's what I was looking for, is that fire, for something for myself, right? So then you get into it and you're like, okay, now I'm going to go into this. And this is the fatal mistakes I see wholesalers make all the time. They join these mentorships and they just throw money down the drain because they think they can buy education. Show of hands, who thinks you can buy education? That's what I'm talking about. No, there is no money that can buy education. It's only hard work. Now you can get better education with money, but it still requires the work or you're not going to take those notes down. So anyway, so the financial roadblocks, I ran out of money. Right, very, very much in the beginning, because I wanted to play with the casino's money, right? I cashed out my 401k. I did really well with Bitcoin, right? And I started traveling with my wife, right? But I still didn't want to use all those reserves because I'm pretty financially literate. Thanks, TCU, right? Go Frogs. But I'm pretty financially literate, so I knew that I had to get to that next point, right? So I was like, well, how the hell am I going to do this, right? I know that I don't need money to do this, right? I know that it's just a spreadsheet and a phone call, but what am I missing? And so I started trying to buy other things. How many here has bought a course that you never used? Yeah, me too, man. Right? But just doing that taught you guys a lesson. It taught you that you need to educate yourself on what you're buying, right? You need to know what you're buying. And that's when I realized that I need to be the guy that does every job in my entire company. Right? Yeah, I'm good on the phone. Yes, I'm a great negotiator. Right? I can close those deals too, that's why. But even with that, I knew that I had to do the hard work, and then I had to do the TC. I had to do all the stuff we're going to talk about today in a couple of slides, which is all of the intricacies, all of those 70 families. That's 70 different ways that you can make money, folks. And it's just a couple of systems away from being scaling you out of your W-2 and getting you to the level of freedom that you're all after. Right? But it takes studious effort. And so Financial Rollbacks, Creative Finance Lifeline, that's where I found Pace Morby in the sub 2 group, and I went into that group humble and eager. Right? One of the key takeaways I want you guys to take away from me today is to be humble, right? It's okay to be ignorant. Stop acting. I run into wholesalers and investors alike, newbies in general, and I ask them the same question that some of you heard me ask today, which is, why are you here? Simple question, right? It's not so simple, is it? It's a lot harder, and you should have thought about that before you got here. And you should be able to have that there to where it's easy for you to connect with people. Make it easy to do business with yourself, right? Step 1. And then I broke the code. I broke the code. What does that mean? It means that I pretty much only see ones and zeros at this point. Everything I see, every building that I see, every blade of grass, there's somebody that cut that grass. Every sign, there's a manufacturing plant that does that. That's the economics brain. It's all ones and zeros. And here's the thing, folks, is if you understand the rules of the game, you can win anything. But you've got to play by the rules. And you don't have to, but you're on a short stick, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead. So creative finance 101. I want to take a pause right now and I want to do a little exercise, right? I would never ask anybody in my company to do something that I wasn't comfortable doing myself. And what I'm going to ask you all to do when I'm done talking is get uncomfortable, right? But to do it first, I am going to sit here and I'm going to challenge everyone in this room that's still sitting here listening to me. Ask me a question that you think I can't have the answer to. I want you to stump me, right? I want to be uncomfortable in front of 50 people not knowing the answer to a question because I want you to see what I do with it. So who's got a question? A hard. Give me anything. I don't care if you think I know nothing about investing, if you think I know nothing about lending, one of you guys out there, ask me a question. A hard one. It could be an easy one too. What you got?
I was watching the YouTube and you were saying that you was hiding the creative process inside of a trust. What is the process of that?
Well, if I said hiding, I don't agree with that term. So with creative, there's a couple of ways, and what that really goes into is the due on sale clause. Anybody here know about the due on sale clause? Can somebody tell me what it is?
So when you're calling a note due.
There it is, right? Very simply, it is calling the note due, right? The lender has the rights, but not the obligation. That means they can, doesn't mean they want to, right? Because the lender is not in the business of houses, right? They're not in the business of real estate. The lender's in the business of what, right? And so what that is a way to say, is a path forward to say that we're going to give them no reasons to look our way, right? But if title is transferring, there are protections in place through federal mandates called the Garn-St. Germain's Act that would protect you in that sense, that they cannot call the loan due because you're doing it for financial reasons. Now, anybody, and I'll say this to the cameras, wherever the hell they're at, anybody that tells you that there's no risk of doing one thing or 15 things says that you're impervious to the due on sale clause or it protects you 100%, they're bold-faced lying to you, or they don't understand what they're talking about. There's always a risk. And that's why part of this is always cash first, creative last, right? Yes, you can make a lot of money doing this. Yes, there's low barriers to entry, but there is a lot of risk, folks, right? And you're gambling with not just your own time and money, but other people's as well. Right. So this is where I push ethical, right? Now you can understand how to navigate a due on sale or how to protect against it to the best of that ability. That's why I use experts to do expert stuff. Now, how did I know though, back to my primary point, thank you for the question, is how did I know what I was buying? I've had good TCs, I've had bad TCs. I've paid $400 for a TC, I've paid $3,600 for a TC. What's the difference? And how could you know the difference unless you did the work? That's my point. You have to know what you're buying every step of the way. You want to start throwing money at problems, you're just going to keep throwing money. You're going to throw good money at bad money if you don't understand what you're doing. So that's what I mean is making sure that you have. Does that answer your question? Got it. Perfect. So that's what I just did, is I just put myself in front of all of you guys and I made myself uncomfortable, right? I'm a very private person, so being in front of a lot of people answering questions that I may or may not have the answer to is tough for most people, right? But that's what I wanted you guys to see. Now I'm going to ask you, when I'm done talking, to go do the exact same thing and do it 10 times before you leave. There's some 50 people in here. You should all be connected by the end of this. You should know whether or not you want to talk to them again. You want to avoid them at the next meetup, right? Yeah. Or you want to build a relationship with them. I talked to several people. I can see you in the room today that have actual things that need to be answered. And then I talked to others that have the answers. It's your job to meet these people where they're at. If that means you got to stand in line while somebody else is finishing a conversation, you do it. Because there's only 3 things that move anything, right? It's time, money, or experience, right? And if you don't have all 3 of those, then you can use the other 2 to go get the other because it's natural, right? And I could use this, and I want to have a graphic on here. It's just one of those things I was thinking about. I should put it in this presentation. But time, energy, or time, money, and expertise. So if you don't have expertise, you need to give time and money to get the expertise, right? If you don't have time, you need expertise and money to get your time back. And that's what entrepreneurs do. You've heard this before, right? As entrepreneurs trade their money for time, right? And that's that cycle that we're going back and forth with. So I can go through all of the steps of creative finance, and that's what I'll do. By a show of hands, how many of you know anything about creative finance? Now that's a healthy amount, right? So how many of you have never heard about creative finance? Let me ask a better question. Who wants to hear about creative finance in this form? Excellent. Okay, that's a lot of people. Okay, I was going to say, hey, we can just open up questions so you guys can get your questions answered right now. Because again, this is your time. I want you to get the value out of me. I am buying your time right now. So subject 2, let's keep it boilerplate. And this is where I love questions. If you have questions, if you have an example that you had, if you talked to a seller yesterday, hell, you are a buyer and you've bought cash nonstop and you're thinking about maybe taking that $200,000 mortgage and the $30,000 you're going to put down and maybe going to buy another house and buying somebody else's mortgage with it, right? That's what this is. This is the mortgage stays in place with the title transfer. That is as simple of a breakdown as it can be, right? Does anybody have any questions about that? What do you mean? What is the title? What is this, right? So with any real estate transaction, you have two different documents. You've got a title and a promissory note, right? That title or deed, right, is the ownership of that house. That debt, promissory note, mortgage, is the rules that you've agreed to get that deed. And should you not follow those rules, then they will take your deed back from you and take their money along the way, right? So there's two different documents as part of this goes. But a straight subject to, this is just it. You're taking over the mortgage subject to the existing financing, which means wherever it sits and lays, right? And in these situations, sometimes we have to bring arrears because there's more pain when it comes to a straight sub to than there is these other forms that we'll talk about here in a minute. So you're solving a problem, right? So the mortgage stays in place, title transfers. Seller finance, you control the terms. There's no banks needed. This is the creme de la creme. A lot of multifamily is done this way as well. Otherwise, it is, right? So a lot of multifamily. This is actually the oldest way to do business, really, seller finance. Right? It's saying that, hey, I have this property. I will sell it to you on terms, right? Key word here, terms. And those terms are set by who, right? What happens to that seller? Anybody help me out here? What happens to that seller when they agree to sell the property on terms? What did they get elevated to? They get elevated to the lender, right? And so as a seller selling on terms, you have a lot of power in that situation because you are the bank. I don't go into Wells Fargo and say, I want $500,000 and I'll give you $100 a month for the rest of my life. I say, hey, sir, ma'am, I really need $500K. Here's the reasons why. Here's my justification. And they say, okay, 8%, I need 20% down, right? And that's what you are as a seller finance seller, and somebody that's buying has to understand that power dynamic and make sure that they understand those things that go into it. This presentation isn't so much about sales and negotiation tactics, which I can help a lot of people with on that as well. But for seller finance, that's as basic as it is. Title is going to transfer in this situation, but there's a term, and it will also, if you do it right, and you have the promissory note drafted up correctly, then it is enforceable, and they can foreclose on you to get that property back. It's a very powerful play for a seller to do this. This is how you maximize your equity, folks, right? But one thing that seller finance requires is a lack of urgency, right? That immediate thing, right? So we've got motivation and urgency, right? I want to sell my house, but I need to sell my house, right? I want to sell my house as a motivational piece. I want to sell my house because I want to move to the Philippines. Okay, great. But I need to sell my house because the cartel's after me, right? So that is the capacity or the speed in which you're going to get to that end goal. So with seller finance, they can wait on their money. Does that make more sense now? Right? But you have three major pieces that you can play with on any one seller finance contract, which is interest, down payment, and the length of the term. Right? So if you understand those three components, then you can get pretty damn creative when you're talking to these people that don't need to sell their house, they just want to. And they want to sell their house, but they don't want to give up what? What's the word? Equity, right? And why would they? Why they already don't want to be with the real estate agent for one reason or another when they're talking to me, right? That's one of the roadblocks we go through. Because if not, I'll give you one of the 6 real estate agents I can confirm are awesome, right? So anyway, wraps. What is a wrap? Right? Sounds cool, but if you think about a Christmas gift, this is my favorite way that I've heard it anyway. Is if you think about a Christmas gift and then regifting that present to somebody else, right? But keeping the same wrapping paper on it and then just wrapping it again and giving it to somebody else. Right? Or wrapping another item inside of it, right? So you've got a closed wrap gift, you've got a teddy bear, and then you've got a wrap around it, right? If you think about the closed wrap gift, that's your underlying mortgage. That's the sub 2 portion, right? Let's say this isn't always about paying. Maybe I'll give you an example. We're going to go over this one here in a minute, which is a hybrid, right? I'm going to give you an example of a straight sub 2, and I'm going to give you an example of a hybrid. A hybrid is a combination between seller finance and subject to, right? So by telling you about these two and then talking about they are all wraps, though, except for the seller finance, right? The wrap is wrapping that underlining note and then maybe adding something on top, maybe not, right? It can just be a mirror wrap. That's another term that you guys can write down and ask me about later if you have any questions, right? And then lease options and contracts for deed. I know that they're going to go over short sales and everything else up there. I'm not going to touch too much on lease options and contract for deed. The only difference is it's very similar to these except for the deed does not transfer, right? So a lease option is you have the exclusive right. There's actually 2 documents. You have your lease and then your option to purchase. right? That exclusive right to purchase says that you are the only person that has the rights to purchase. You or this entity are the only people that have the rights to purchase this property. And then you have that option fee that's there, and then you have a lease payment as well, just like anything else, anybody that's rented an apartment or a house, right? So 2 major documents there. Then you have go ahead.
Does those payments that they make on the lease option apply towards the principal balance?
That's a really good question, and that's why there's 2 different documents, right? So you have an option fee, is to say that I am going to pay you X amount of money, typically about up to 5%, for the exclusive right to purchase this property for 1, 2, 3 years, whatever the case may be. And then you have the lease, and that lease does not apply, right? Those lease payments do not apply towards principal, but you can also, that's where the contract for deed comes in. It's because you can organize those to be about the same thing, right? Where you have, penny for, you address what the principal pay down is, just like any other standard amortized loan, right? And so does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then the biggest thing is here, I could talk about this stuff for days, guys, but it always comes down to the right tool for the right job, right? I look at creative finance as a tool in my tool belt. And I understand, and I was just talking about this earlier with a gentleman, you do need to niche down, and you do need to master something, especially if you're new at this game, right? You need to pick something and run with it, because you're going to learn the rest of this stuff by mastering that, right? Or you're going to be introduced to all those other things, rather. Right. So here, with the right tool and right job, I always go off of the notion of cash first, creative last. Right. And I do that for a number of reasons, but the main reason is I'm price conditioning, right, for my cash offer. But that way I can make a better deal for my subject to or otherwise creative purchase. And so anyway, right tool, right time. People that go in there and they tell realtors how to do their job, and they're like, well, you have to present my client with whatever I sent you. I'm like, has that gotten anybody anything but spit in their food moving in the past? Right? That's not how you cook a steak. I ain't sending my shit back. I've worked in kitchens. I'm good, guys. But that said, it's right time, right place, and you might shoot yourself in the foot by trying to educate people that don't want your education. Right. And so if you're newer, and most of the people here are trying to be or working towards that wholesaler business instead of just a hobby, do we know the difference? The main difference? Are you guys in a hobby or are you in a business? See, Jabs and I, Crump, I know these guys. I know they have wholesale businesses, right? But we started as wholesalers. There's a big, big, big difference. One is a hobby, one is a business. We'll talk about that some other time. Thanks. So understanding the process, lots of words on the page, but I want to show you this stuff, right? So your key players, these are all people that you need to know. And in fact, they're in this room. You're in a title office right now, right? So they're all around you. You just need to ask the right questions. So the key components to find your place is that sub-2 seller finance hybrid. We're going to go over the sub-2, the straight sub-2, and then the hybrid today. And your key players, you can check me out on YouTube. There's the major component pieces to a real estate transaction that you're going to need. It's a purchase and sales agreement. That is your AB contract, but it can also be a BC contract, right? Meaning as a wholesaler, AB is your purchase and sales, BC is either your assignment or your purchase and sales agreement if you're flipping. But all of these people need to be addressed. TC is a transaction coordinator. I use the best. I pay lots of money to what other people would look at to make sure it's done perfectly every single time. We call this sleep easy money where I'm from, right? I am going to pay a lot of money for experts to do stuff so that I don't have to worry about this 3, 6, 9, 3, or even worse, many, many years later when an issue comes up, right? And just because somebody will do it for $500 does not mean you should be paying somebody $500 to do this level of work, right? So in lenders, again, by just doing this one way and thinking, you're going to have to think like a buyer if you're trying to talk to sellers, right? Because you have to know what a good deal is. And so that's what I mean by these are your major players, right? TC, title, sellers, and buyers. Those are really all you need to focus on in the beginning, right? And then figuring out what they need. That's X. Go find X and go help them, right? I don't need lunch. I need leads, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So just saying. So what documents for each? And then learn to underwrite, right? What does that even mean, right? What is the difference between comping and underwriting? Can anybody tell me? Comping and underwriting? How many have comped a property? There better be a lot of hands up here if you guys are doing real estate transactions, right? How many have underwritten a property? Oh, obviously multifamily, right? Absolutely. Pro forma all the way, right? There's a difference, right? Comping is just what I call back of the envelope stuff. Now, before I put a contract in place, I'm going to do that, but I'm also underwriting my exit strategies. There's a key word there, exit strategies. And if you're going to go into wholesale, you have to understand the exit strategies so you stop wasting your time on bad leads. That's what I mean by that, is zone in. When I say zero in, I mean zero in on a certain type of archetype of buyer. That's exactly what I would do in the very beginning. Is I want to sell to landlords. I want to sell to hedge funds. What does that even mean? What is a hedge fund, right? Google, what is hedge fund? Hey, ChatGPT, what are the 5 best ways that I can find a hedge fund? What conversation should I have, right? Everything is at our disposal, folks. So you gotta get out there and actually ask the questions. But as buyers, sellers, and as a lender, I can't tell you, it's going to come to you eventually. You're going to get tired as a wholesaler of seeing all these other people, like everybody else in this room, making all of this money, and you're over here sucking up a $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 assignment check, right? That's the next step. You got to hit that level to where you're like, okay, I'm ready to actually try my hand over here and do a flip. Or, but then that leads you to the next echelon where you have to go start back at square one and get back in these rooms and start asking the same questions to similar people. The education piece never stops. Alex Hormozy just said this, and I loved it. I watched it on the way here, or I heard it on the way here in one of his podcasts where he was talking about the problem never stops, folks. If you think that getting into wholesale is this magic pill that you're going to be able to swallow and everything's going to be okay because you watched some guru talk about it, right? That's just flat out wrong. This shit is hard. It's simple. It's not easy, especially if you want to take it from being a hobby to a profession, right? If you call yourself an investor, my question is, what are you investing in? And I'm investing in a wholesale business, to give you an example of how I ended up there. So if you understand how the money flows, you understand literally everything. And this is what I was saying. But by money flows, I mean where the money goes, right? Like what are the rules of the money? And so what do I need? If I want to go get a DSCR loan, well, first off, what is a DSCR loan, right? We're talking about creative here. But if I want to go get a loan, how do I get that information? How do I give myself the best chance of success, especially when we're using other people's money, right? You got to drive other people's money like you drive my truck, right? I'm not going to drive your truck like I drive my truck. I don't give a shit about my truck. I've had this thing. It's got 200,000 miles on it. I don't care, right? I don't care if you had a Honda Civic, right? I would baby that baby all the way down the highway just because it's not mine. Right? And that's a big piece when you're using other people's money anyway. And I'll always ask, what's in it for me? That is the whole key component here. If you're talking about a seller, a buyer, a lender, a wholesaler, an investor, any of us here, what's in it for me? I just gave you a hint. I don't need lunch. I need leads, right? I need contracts to close. I need deals to put in front of my buyers, right? I need fodder so I can flesh out my systems and break it again. I'm looking forward to the problems, right? Because I understand, like most of these other people in here, that I'm building something to frickin' break it so that I can make it better and build it again. And eventually, when you level up, step up over step, you will get to the last piece, but all with this in mind, which is what's in it for me from the other side. So what's in it for this other person? Why would this person even want to talk to me? Well, I don't know unless I ask the question. Most of us here are pretty open for it, but anyway, so this is what you guys probably came here for, is where does the money come and go, and how do I do this, right? This is a property that I currently live in. If you guys want to stop by, I welcome, right? I bought this up too. I talked about it at a mastermind the other day with you over in Arlington too. But how did I get into this deal? And the next few slides are going to get a little bit data heavy. So those of you in the back, if you want to kind of move forward to see some of the numbers, I'll speak it a little louder. But we are going to go over the numbers now. So if you guys have questions over concept, theory, anything I just covered, let's ask now, right? Or catch me after the presentation. Because I guarantee you, if you have a question, somebody else does too, they are just not willing to get uncomfortable right now. And that's perfectly okay.
Anybody got any questions so far?
Because I'm about to go into the numbers. What's up, Eric? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Eric, one figure I don't see on there is funding the escrow.
Sure. And when you say funding the escrow, you're talking about cash to close?
Well, you've got to pay the insurance and the property taxes.
Sure.
So that's something to take into consideration with your, so it's people who think they might have 30 grand in their pocket to put down on a property. When you take out the funding the escrow for 12 months, that 30 grand is now all of a sudden 15 to 20.
Absolutely, right? And that's a big deal, right? Because now we're at 50% contingency and we're one water heater away from being in a really, really bad spot, right? Or an AC unit going out or somebody crashing into the side of the house, right? But it is on the next slide. So what he was just talking about is really, really important. It's understanding, it's not just to get to the closing table, because it's like, I swear it's like a relay race. It's like, I deal with this with investors all the time where it's like, okay, I got here, I'm done. No. They're like, I got a contract, dude. You're only 25% complete, folks. It's all uphill from there. Right? It's actually the easy part is getting the contract. The rest of it is all this education piece, and we don't understand. Just like you, I had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
Right? This is about a year and a half ago, where I finally decided that I was going to start buying properties, because you'll hear about this and other stuff, but I've always wanted to play with the casino's money. I could have bought properties right when I got in, not like I couldn't have bought a bunch of properties, but I could have bought at least 1 or 2. But instead, I diversified out and I did that. But along this way, right, I closed and realized I was like, oh shit, I have $3,000 in insurance premiums I have to pay, and they need this today. I did not plan for this. My money's still in escrow. My money's coming from the bank, right? I'm like, wait a minute. And so that is on the next one. We learn that, we incorporate that into our trainings. Again, you can be trained all day long, but until you beat your knuckles against the brick, you're not going to learn these lessons. Like I was able to just do that here, right? But anyway, so let's go over the general things here. This is the house, right? So this one has solar, but it also has a really favorable interest rate. I think it's 3%. I don't even know. I think so. Yeah. 2.85 or 875% interest, even better. So it's a great rate, right? And then if you did this cumulative here, you know, like 1.49% on the solar. Holy shit, man, that's free money, folks. What is the average inflation year over year? Anybody? Come on, you're all in real estate.
4 to 7%.
4 to 7. If it's 7, we need to move. But yeah, you're right though, right? Depending on what metrics we're looking at, that the magic number is about 4, right? To start, so you're not wrong at all. Right, and so it depends on where you're at, right? So inflation, as far as housing markets go, and everything else, right? As far as that goes, and when it trickles on down, right? So we're underneath that. So the bank is literally losing money having this mortgage in place, year over year, right? And so that's what we get to step in. I get to step into, and what did I bring to the table? 20K. Now, this is for the very beginning, and what was my actual closing or my cash to close? It's close to about 35, right? That's 20K plus closing costs, plus I paid a TC, $4,000 total because they have a really cool product that I like. Oh, no, but it's $2,000, but then there's a guarantee for the due on sale. So anyway, I don't even want to get into that right now. I pay money for experts to do expert shit so that I can sleep easy at night. And when I have time with my wife, I can actually decompress and spend time with my wife. That's what it comes down to, right? So I don't have to worry about this stuff because I'm going to throw this I'm throwing $2,000. I'm buying my peace of mind back, folks. They're going to handle it white glove approach from front to back if anything goes wrong, right? All I got to do is make a phone call. Hey, it's messed up. All right, man, I'm on it. All right, cool. Click. I'm hanging out, right? Because I know I already spent the money, so I have that peace of mind. But anyway, you do it how you want to, because I used to have cheap TCs too, and then I was chasing these people around. Things weren't done right. The promissory note was all jacked up, and I'm looking at it on the 11th hour or the day before close, and now I need a 7-day extension, and now I look like an ass, right? So I learned these lessons through experience, and that's why I spend a lot of money on the purchases I make. Right, that TC only costs $2,000, but the extra added service is $2,000. So I make that decision. So there we go. So you got the idea. There's a mortgage. Can you hit the next, please?
No questions at all. Like
They'll have questions on this one. Holy shit! There's numbers, right? So this is on the next property 5517 Packwater. That's a hybrid. I'm going to go in there. There's a lot more information on that slide because I want you guys to understand the difference between private money. PMLs, PMPs, and what it looks like to the difference of an exit strategy. So there's a lot of meat and potatoes coming up here in a second. How am I doing on time? You're good. All right. So home value, that's the property you just looked at. So I actually paid, so I brought in a private money lender in this, or private money partner in here. That's why you see private money is empty here. And I want you guys to see the difference there. Right? If this deal, most investors would have looked at this deal and said, you know, it doesn't float, right? I got to use PML. I'm bringing 40K to the table. I'm sorry, $33,000 to the table. And by the way, that contingency, to answer your question, Andrew, came out of that 13K. So what he just said happened to me, right? Which is, oh shit, insurance, right? Forgot about that. And the year's worth, depending on if you're flipping or you're doing these other kind of loans. But home value is $300K. We're looking at $2,500 in rent. And then I just do a simple equation where I put up 3% rent year over year. I understand that it's normally a lot more than that, but I like to be conservative. And then I show this to my PML, PMP, and I show them the difference of what it looks like here, and then what we can actually make at the end of this if they're comfortable letting their money sit for 7 years, right? Mortgage payoff at that time, right? And reminding you guys here that it'll be 12 years into our mortgage, and anybody that understands the AMP schedule means that we're now paying more principal off as we get deeper into this loan, right? Solar payoff at that time, same thing here, total payoff here, right? And then a 50% partner on this one. So I brought in a PMP, and I will give you the same lesson I learned with sellers, which is get out of the seller's head. Just because it doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean it can't make sense to them. Does that make sense? Right? And so I'm not, to tell you about this is a nurse, right? This is somebody that has made a lot of money over the last few years and is about to retire, but doesn't want her money just sitting in a bank account. Right? And it's like, hey, what can I do with it? Hey, I see that you're over here making moves. Hey, let me look at this. Let me show you this. Well, show me a single. No, this is obviously the ROI is not calculated annually. Right? It's probably like 12%. But the 167 ROI, show me a blue chip stock. Show me an index fund. Show me a bank account, an IRA, or anything that gets you anywhere close. Even if my numbers are jacked up, y'all can figure it out for yourself. Right? I don't care. Right? 167% ROI. Show me anything that does that. But also show me something that you can set and let watch grow. Right? That is what we're offering, but they have to believe in you. They have to believe in your mission. They're not lending to Terra Real Estate. They're lending to Eric Vodicka and his team. Right? And they want to feel secure. So again, time, expertise, or money, right? I just wanted to show you guys that. Any questions about this and how I broke down numbers and how we're turning this money out and how our cash flows here? And mind you, I'm only doing long-term rent. Somebody asked me why. Why? The reason I'm only doing long-term rent is because that's the worst case scenario. And you're going to see this in a lot of community groups, like all of the people, like they're like, oh yeah, I'll buy it, but I want 0% down, under 3% interest, and absolutely I'm a buyer. No, you're ignorant. Because people waste your time no matter what. Tire kickers are on both sides of the fence, guys. So buyers lie. How did that go?
Buyers are liars, sellers are worse.
That's right. Buyers are liars, sellers are worse. I always get it flipped, right? I'm like, wait, sellers, liars, fool me once. I would totally do worse than him. I'm just saying. So that's the basic piece here, right? So they get 50% of the split here, but on this one, we're taking the cash flow and actually we reorganize this after the fact, and they're going to take 75% of all equity on the property, take 25% of cash flow, and I'm taking 75% of the cash flow because that's what I need, right? I'm not setting up dominoes for the future right now. I need cash flow to refeed into my marketing channel so that I can get Edith over here fed to the nth degree because she doesn't have enough dispo deals to dispo, right? So I have these next level problems that are coming up, and I need to funnel money back into these marketing channels. So I need cash flow. I'll give up equity right now because I can buy those houses later, right? And so it's all about get out of your buyer's head, get out of your lender's head, and have a real conversation. And I only got there by risking rejection. It's what my wife told me when we first got together. I knew she was going to say yes. I knew it. She made me ask. She's like, no, you have to risk rejection. I was like, damn. All right, fine. I'll put this damn shirt on. All right. So let's move on to the next one because the next one is a hybrid. I think it'll get the juices flowing here a little bit.
Everybody good?
Actually, I have a question. How much money did you bring to the table? How much money did your partner bring?
So on this one was 100% funded by the PMP, but that's because I'm operating, right? So I'm operating it. All turnover cost was on me, and that was it. I said I want $33,000. I'll never ask for another, because I'm going to operate.
To piggyback off of his question, do you use any of your own money
Absolutely.
for your deals?
Absolutely, right? Why? Because it shows skin in the game, right? Especially when you get in the beginning, right? Now, it's funny. I just talked to a lender and I said, hey, I've got another lender over here. He's like, what the hell are you doing? I want to lend with you. I'm like, hey, look, I get that, but like, I got to diversify here. It's business. It's like, if you get hit by a truck tomorrow, right? I need money to feed my families. I've got staff. They have families. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's people that rely on us, and that's what keeps us moving forward, right? Keep growing and keep getting uncomfortable and challenge ourselves each day. So this is a pretty simple one. This is straight sub 2. We cashed out his equity. Right, and mind you, I bought this house at market, right? It's about a $310,000 house. But the cool thing about this little story here is this guy owns a solar company, right? And is building solar farms. So he got all of the solar, about $70,000 worth of solar put on this house for cost, which was $27,000. So it's the first time that I've ever had solar that made sense, ever. Yeah, well, that was his problem. He fought the market. He had a landlord in there. He had another kid, had to go back out to California, and was like, listen, I'll just rent it out and I'll take the hit. He's like, I'm just not taking the hit on my equity. And I was like, man, those solar panels though. He's like, I know. He's like, but it's a $0 electric bill every month. I was like, I like that. Hold on. Talk to the wife. Hey, do you like this house? Hey, I need to go walk this house, honey. Will you walk with me? And she's like, I like this. I said, I know. And so I go back and I told him that. So it was legitimacy on top of that. So I told, and here's the thing, right? So on this file here, why would they just drop $33K without my own money? Is because they knew that I was going to occupy the house. I have an extensive background in construction, right? And I can do pretty much every home job myself, right? But the house is already turnkey. So anything goes wrong, they know I'm there, right? Guaranteed rent. I was going to live in your house. Anyway, but this one came up, it was a better deal for me. So let's move on to the next one.
So do you have typically buy creative deals close to your neighborhood or?
Oh yeah, I'm super prejudiced.
Or
I'm super prejudiced. I will buy outside of my neighborhood, but West Fort Worth, baby, where you at, Eric? Yeah, we're taking West. What's up, man? Taking this place over, right? No, I've been in West Fort Worth for the last like 10, 15 years. I went to TCC Northwest, and that's just I like to be able to reach out and touch my projects, right? So for my buy and holds, actually, there's now 4 in that neighborhood, right in that area. Right, White Settlement is it saved my life buying that house, right? Like no joke, I'll tell you that story some other time. But it's near and dear to my home, and Texas in general saved my life getting out of Chicago, right? It was a horrible experience there. And so when I got finally back up here, many things happened in that area, and I bought my first house there, and I just love West Fort Worth, man. Yeah. So will I buy outside? Yeah, with other people, right? And that's where this whole thing comes in, folks, is networking. Right, and building your network to a point where it's like, hey, listen, we have deals in South Carolina right now. I'm never going to South Carolina, folks. I'm not. I don't like South Carolina. Y'all can come kick it with me. Right, Texas is way better. I'm sorry, go ahead. But anyway, like to get there, I'm like, hey, I call up people that I know. Actually, what's the other one? Iowa, right? This is a multifamily in Iowa. I'm like, am I going to be the buyer? Shit, I might be if it's the right deal. You think I'm going to run for money? It's just a problem to solve, right? And that's how I got into real estate in the first place. I was like, well, fuck, I bought this house and just handed over this money to this agent. I was like, well, maybe I want to do that, right? Anyway, so here's Packwater. Did I answer your question? Yeah. So I hyper-focus for purchases in my own market, but I know people that do this nationally, right? Especially when we talk, and we'll get into this one about Section 8 here in a minute.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because y'all were talking about the solar panels on that house making sense. So when you find the houses with those solar panels that don't, how do you work with that? What do you do about it?
Well, solar's tricky when it comes to creative, right? Because it's the Wild West out there for solar companies. They're a dime a dozen, and they're not all ethical, right? I've seen it a multitude of different ways. And in fact, I just had a contract, this Valerie property in Carrollton. That was probably the most confusing contract I've ever written. Or read, right? Because that's part of us as creative people, right? Is we've got to read the contracts and understand to provide the solutions for the sellers, right? Like getting into a HELOC with a small bank, right? What are the rules there? It's going to change every time a little bit, but we just have to have the right conversation from the very beginning. And if we do that, we build that rapport and we build that trust with the seller, then they'll walk that with us, right? So if it can be done, I can get it done. If the numbers don't work, then sometimes we can't do anything. Right? And it all comes down to urgency, right? Because they may want to sell their house, but if they need to sell their house, a lot of those problems are going to solve themselves pretty quick, right? And just making sure we stay on them and don't let their heads get buried in the sand too deep, right? So it's a tricky question to answer just because there's so many answers, question to ask because there's so many answers. So how do we deal with it? If they don't work, I'm not going to do it. We'll talk offline here. But like, there's other ways that you can do it to where you can take on that debt yourself. It can be passed over after the fact because they're not all liens on the property. Like for instance, this one's not a lien on the property, so it would have screwed it up for a lot of different people. But since we had the right buyer in that situation, they understood what was going on and they were comfortable with it happening after the closed escrow. Right. So it's not always a one-way ticket. Right. There's not always
but
one.
But they're hard to wholesale those houses with. It's better to buy them creatively because of the solar.
I look at it as a lead's a lead, right? If I've got urgency with the seller, if I have a motivated seller, then I'm going to solve that problem for them, right? So I don't run away from them, but I am much more, direct in the very beginning, right? If that number is astronomical and it's just breaking it, right? If your realtor couldn't get it done, then there's a likelihood that I'm going to struggle as well. Right, just because we know now that it's about solar, so it's just I got to get my hands on that contract. That's where I come from. So if you do ever have a question about that, just reach out to me. I've read, I don't know, at this point, 50 or 60 different versions of contracts for solar. So, there's a way to do it with every single file. It's just how much sweat equity are we going to put in? How big is this assignment? How big is this problem? And what's the likelihood of us solving it in a timely fashion? Now, I did just close a file, and it was only, I think it was a $4,000 assignment, 72 touch points. So look at that face. So that's the game, right? The money is in the follow-up, right? But then there's another lead that came from that, and that's a $23,000 potential, right? So you see how you just got to stay in the game, right? You got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and then eventually all of this shit will make sense. Excuse my language. What you got?
Those touch points, 72.
72.
Are those like actual conversations?
Text, email, phone call, everything. But the 72 I counted were just text and phone call.
Those phone calls, are those actual conversations?
No, that could be voicemail because I'm looking at my CRM, right? So it's like 72 touch points. And so that's a voicemail, but we double tap and leave voicemails daily if we're trying to get a hold of people during like crunch times. Go ahead.
Eric, just out of curiosity, just wondering if you work your deals backwards.
Of course.
Yeah, because that informs the entry.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean by underwrite. That's a really good question. I can tell that you have your own brokerage. But so reverse engineering, right? That is what I meant by what's in it for me. That's what I was talking about, right? From their side is you need to understand what a buyer's looking for. You need to understand what a lender's looking for, what a multifamily buyer versus a landlord, or a single family landlord versus a pad split operator versus, midterm renter, any of those things. And so once you understand all of that, and this is what I mean by pick one at first, right? For the newer people here is pick one and master it, because the rest of that will come with time. And so, yes, I reverse engineer literally every day. Does it answer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, understanding who the end user is going to be, what's in it for the understanding of the motives of the investor.
Yeah, and it lends itself additionally when you're having that conversation with the seller as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is, hey, I may not be your buyer, but if I'm not, I can go find one. Would you be okay with that, right? And then you can go and find that pad split operator or whoever else. And then since I understand that exit strategy, I can articulate that to the seller in the middle, right? And so that there's not this big confusion at the end as to why somebody's filling in my pool, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we don't want risk when we have a bunch of people. It's just a lawsuit. Right? So once again, why creative? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I bought a house. This is a 2022 build. I bought it for $360,000. ARV is about $345,000. It's got a 3.625% interest rate. So it's not why creative, it's why not, right? Why wouldn't I do this if I could? Well, it's because cash did not solve this problem. This house was built in 2022. Show me a single 2022 build that can be bought with a traditional cash sale. And I'll show you a house that got severely messed up, right? Because they just haven't had enough time for the equity to make sense. Right? They haven't built enough equity in that form. So this one's a little different. It's got a 10-year term, right? But this actually just went down because our insurance is the first time ever I've seen insurance cause a mortgage to go down since I started this game. And it just so happened to be the one I bought, which was nice. But it just went down to $1,900 a month, right? $1,900 a month plus a small HOA fee, so we're up at that $2,086 plus change, right? So go ahead and go to the next. Oh, by the way, $295,000 mortgage, and it was 2022. So I just put that there so that the next page makes sense. I know it's a lot, okay? I got 5-10 minutes to go over just this. I want to show you guys what it looks like, and mind you, this is at market rent, right? Long-term rent, and I'm going to talk about this one here in a second, okay? When we underwrite our deals, we think about our buyers. I'm a buyer, so I can do that, right? So when I look at this, I'm looking at what are my exit strategies, and this is what underwriting is, okay? You have to actually educate yourself on this and think like a buyer. And you can do that through spreadsheets. If you're part of these groups, you can always get them if you want to join Discord or shoot me a text. I'll send you some calculators, right? Just to help you get down the line. Because that was the one thing I wanted when I got into this game was information. Where do I get the information, okay? So this is the same property, right, with a little bit of breakdown. I use my own calculators just because all the other ones I end up only using 10% of them anyway, right? So I just built my own. But estimated value is 345, and you can see that I'm conservative in that estimate, right? I did not put my purchase price. My purchase price is 360. I gave her $25,000 down and I got the rest of that difference between the 295 and the 360 purchase price minus $25,000, 0% interest, 0 payments for 10 years. Come on, where's? Come on, like that's what I mean by a hybrid, and it can only get done this way. And she would only work with me, right? Because I built a lot of rapport. This was 30, 40 touch points. Hell, I just paid $1,000 for a lawyer to draw up a lease option contract because everybody told me that I couldn't do a lease option in Texas. I said, hold my beer. I was like, I bet you I can do that. I got the know-how, and I do have a little bit of scratch in my pocket to make shit happen, right? Go ahead.
What's the lead time for this one?
This was, ooh, man, that's a good question. I want to say this one was a cold call. Yeah.
Is it like close closure or?
No, actually, this is the reason I chose this one is because this one is 100% towards gain, not away from pain. Now, there's always pain, right? So she didn't want to live there anymore, and her husband already got orders to go somewhere else. This is a VA loan as well. And so she was moving, but she didn't need to move. Right? There was
Probably low equity.
It was a low equity situation. So, well, I mean, we pull all kinds of different stuff. So I'm pretty sure it was a cold call. It may have been direct mail. But either way, they got in there. And as far as like putting some of the list gen piece, it's all about buy box serving. Because I've advanced in this position, or I've advanced in this game long enough to where if you put me on the phone with somebody, I can close it, right? To where I don't care where the lead came from, because I'm just going to go talk to a person. Let me say that again. I don't care where the lead came from or who's on the other end of that phone, because I'm just going to go have a conversation with a human. And once you have all of this stuff in your backlog, then you can pull it out when you need it. And you can focus on rapport and actually solving problems instead of just looking at your next check, right? Everyone's so focused on $10,000. You know how many assignments I've had with I've only made $500 or $1,000, but I was actually solving a problem. There's no better reward than that, folks. Anyway, now money's great. That's better. So let's go over this here, right? So I wanted to show you the difference of what a PML looks like. So PML again is a private money lender. This is somebody that has money that doesn't that is willing to lend it to you with a return. Those terms can be a bunch of different ways. The going is, I think it's between like 12 and 15% right now. And now there's a lot of people out here that are asking astronomical nonsense. They're like, I want 20% in 2 days and all this other crazy shit. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about, right? And that's perfectly okay, right? And that's what I meant by being humble. Because I'm like, that's not reasonable. Nobody's gonna actually borrow that money. You basically, why are you even talking right now, right? Like, again, actually, it was yesterday. Eric, when we went to that meetup, he was like, "Man, you got to talk faster for Eric because he's going like this, right? So you got to be quick with it when it comes to these kind of conversations, especially in the personal game." But this is the big difference. Let me get back to the point here. PML, right? What is a PMP? This is a PMP, right? I've made the fatal mistake of organizing private money in a way that mirrored that of a PMP or vice versa, right? Where this is the lesson that I learned. You get one or the other. Right? You get equity or you get cash flow, right? And that's really the difference between PMP and PML, right? PML is going to get money now, right? But you can do this, it's creative again. You can organize this however you want, folks. Like this one here is, you'll see down here, is 75% to the partner. Once again, it's because they want the equity, I want the cash flow, right? But I wanted to make sure that they understood we were strapped at the hip, so I gave them cash flow because I don't care about the equity, but I still get equity at the end of this deal. Anyway, you guys can do that. But as far as that goes, so PML, PMP, that's the big difference, right? So my PMP that came in here with $47,500. That's because I've learned those lessons once again, right? Where I was like, I'm going to need another $3,000, and I need this, and I need that, and I need this, and I need that. You know what? Let's just call it $47,000, and this is what you get in return. Right? Return investment gain is $113,000 ROI, and I even give you the annualized ROI. Again, show me a blue chip stock, an investment fund, or anything like that that gives you these returns. These people don't want to be involved in real estate. They just want to see their money grow because they work their ass off for it, right? So, and then I want to tell you about why I do this. Again, I'm back in the deal, and this is my worst case scenario. If shit hits the fan, I can always long-term rent this puppy. Right? 2022 build, perfect, mint condition. But any Section 8 people in here? Anybody? Okay. Do you by chance have an ability to pull up 76179? This is a fun little piece here, right? This is why this last piece is here, and this is one of the last things I'll open up for questions you got here, right? What's that? Yeah, just fair market rent. and then for a 4 voucher. And I'm going to skip to the end for you guys. I just want him to confirm it, right? So once you understand exit strategies, you can understand what you can do. 76179. This is worth it, folks, because I want to show you. Now you can see what I'm about to do. It's kind of already out here. I didn't want to do because I'm old school. I didn't want the right, like clip art from. Yeah.
If y'all want to find out what Section 8 pays, I learned this from Zach Shelley, actually, at a couple meetups ago. You can go to Dallas, type in the market payment standards in whatever year it is. So Fort Worth payment standards 2025, and it'll give you all the zip codes and what they will pay per area.
But also understand your housing authority changes. This is not a Section 8 meeting, but I did work very closely to this for about a decade in the city of Fort Worth, so I do know quite a bit about it. When it comes to the actual law, right, and what we can and cannot do, the difference between vouchers and everything else. But that said, roughly, if I were to get a 4 voucher in here, again, perfect condition, it's a 4-3, great neighborhood. 76179 is one of the most sought after zip codes in Section 8 for Fort Worth Housing Solutions, and which means it's going to rent very quickly, and it's going to rent for somewhere around that number right there. And I want to show you guys the difference between this cash flow. I just want you to see cash flow by year, right? So you guys can see here. Starts off at 35, ends at about 10K, right? And then I want to show you what it starts out with Section 8. Right now, mind you, this is gross, right? This is the gross actual income here. Right? Cash flow by year is 19,000 year one. So again, I organized a deal to where all of that equity that's left in this house, right? All of this equity that's left in there, I'm giving up 75% of that for my private money partner to, one, feel comfortable, two, know that they're getting a good investment, seeing that they're getting 13% year over year and a 240% overall increase on their funds. But along the way, it solves my problem as well, because this is what my plan is, right? I can fall back on this plan, here, right? And we're doing good. That's still a good year, right? We're definitely doing good year 5, right? We're doing really good. But if I can make this work, and this is where the motivation comes in, and this is where I dug back in the back of my pockets here, and I was like, wait a minute, I do know about Section 8. Holy shit, actually, I know way more than most people about this, because I damn near wrote the book for the city of Fort Worth, you know what I mean? Like, they put me through it. Working closely with Fort Worth Housing Solutions and everything else, we've had these conversations, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that other life of mine. And that's, do you get what I'm saying, right? So I've got 4 different lives at this point, right? People talk about careers and talk about lives. I'm like, no, man, in my previous life, he'll still meet you in the parking lot, right? But the other one, I'll try and help you. You know what I mean? So that's the gist of it, right? So I added a 16.5 contingency. It's perfect condition, and I want to go ahead and disclose this. Everyone that thinks that Section 8 is hard, I want to remind you that they are literally the best tenants on the planet. Anybody rents the Section 8? They're amazing, aren't they? It's because they know that if they screw up, then they're out of the program for life. Right? So the worst renters in the world are the bottom echelon of the paid market. They're awful. They're awful. They don't care about you. They don't care about them, right? But you mess up a Section 8 rental, and your family's screwed for a long time. But that's who I want to help, right? I want to help people that are actually about this life. All right, next, and the final one.
It's a good question about this.
Sure.
Underwriting, you leave any room for CapEx?
Oh, of course, 100%. So he asked the question for those of you in the back. He said, when I underwrite, do I include CapEx? CapEx is capital expenditure, and you're damn right I do.
Of course.
Yeah, that's the only way you get real cash flow, right? When we talk about gross net. Right? Our net cash flow has to take in your CapEx and your contingency, your rental, any changes, vacancy. Do you want your replacement reserves in there, right? So does that answer your question? Yeah.
All right, guys, we got any final questions? That's
Yes.
a great team.
So when you're talking about your TC, you've been to multiple. What screenings are you looking for when?
So the question I got was, when I'm looking for TCs, and tell me if I'm wrong here, when I'm looking for TCs, what kind of criteria am I going through to make sure that they're a good TC? Is that accurate? I vet the shit out of them. I grill them. I ask questions because I know a lot about creative, and I know how to say the wrong thing to get somebody to give me an answer, right? And if they don't correct me, then that's a bad TC. Because I'm pretty powerful in a room, especially on a phone call, right? And if I know what I'm talking about, I need somebody that's going to stand up to me and say, hell no, that's wrong. That's why this is a shout out. Caleb Christopher's team over at Creative TC is freaking awesome. They will stop me in my tracks and say, no, Eric, that's wrong. I'm like, right. And does that answer that? So that's a plug. I mean, affiliate link does. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm not into Section 8, but I'm interested in that because I'm interested in co-living. But I was listening to Zoom the other day, and they were talking about that there's a lot of regulations that go into Section 8 as far as the width of the doors and stuff. What are those type of regulations that above, outside of like pad split co-living?
If they're not crazy, they're just ADA. You gotta make sure that you can incorporate Americans with Disabilities Act, right? You gotta make sure that they're healthy, safe, and sanitary living pieces there. Now, any individual code perspective is gonna be your local housing authority. And so where are you located?
Carrollton.
Carrollton. So Carrollton is part of the consortium. They may be part of Dallas County, right? The Dallas Housing Consortium. But anyway, so the answer to your question is you're going to have to talk to the housing authority about that. And I'm not a code enforcement officer, but they're generally that, right? They're all geared towards ADA and making sure that's healthy, safe, and sanitary. Awesome. Anybody else? All right, that's me. YouTube and everything else. Thank you for your time. I hope you got the value of it. I was hoping to give you guys $50 worth of your time back, because I know that your time's worth about an hour. Thank you.
All right, we got Chris Crump. Where's he? Where's my partner?
What's your name?
All right, we're taking a break.
Or is it Zeke?
Yeah, like a quick 2-minute break, really quick. And we want to get you up here. I'm about to go underwrite a multi-family deal right quick.
I said, I'm going to work right now. I want to make this possible to get this on right there. Yeah.
Through where?
YouTube and
That's what I thought you
My name is Zeke. Zeke. What's your name?
Right.
Great. And you guys part of Eric's team?
No, we also host a meetup.
Okay. Is that the one meetup you were talking about? Okay.
So we host a meetup. We see a lot of the same people.
Okay, that's awesome.
So right now, yeah, just trying to get it out there. To get started. Most people learning.
And then, so you do wholesale business?
Right now, I'm.
Yes.
Right now?
Yes. Me and my wife, 16 months ago. No wholesale.
But I'm not.
So we was learning about wholesale deal and ended up doing creative deals. And we was like, hold on. Let's go back to the drawing
That's
board.
funny.
And let's, make sure we have proper balance. And let's work on that across the board.
Because I'm.
So, how big are you guys' events?
Around the same attendance. So it'd be around the same attendance.
They can always reach out.
Once a month.
Every third.
Thursday.
These are the regular faces. It's our first time coming down.
I didn't just mean what I just never treated them.
How much you travel?
Oh,
That's what I'm a little bit more northeast, like 2.5 hours away. But it's worth 100% worth it. This is the one to get out.
I just feel like 8 months. Does anything sales?
okay. I was just about to ask you.
Like, I want to be more, no, give me some,
Before that, I built car pretty quick.
For one, it was only one meeting.
Right now, like I said,
resources to us. Chaser.
I'm wholesale.
And we call
I joined up. If you hear like it's only that's the hardest thing.
It's a deal online. If you look at it, see if the numbers right. We can show you out there on the store.
Scoot back so you're not on top of the thing. I told.
Okay, I know we were walking in together. I'm so sorry. Remind me of your name.
Zeke. I told.
Okay, Gloria.
Gloria.
Yes, nice to meet you. So, do you do wholesale?
We do tiny homes.
Shoot, why did I go?
We're building them now.
Shelby.
Looking into.
I told Shelby to log into the YouTube and just go click on it and let it roll.
Okay, awesome. What
So we can start getting the
So,
things.
like Dallas or more of like the
And then I also told
We
Jack.
can literally do anything in Dallas, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. I can deliver anywhere.
Do it on the other computer too.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
How long have you been doing
I'm
that?
gonna go grab some food.
I personally been in there for a year. The company's been there for 6 years. And it's growing faster.
Especially with today's economy, tiny homes.
Yes.
It's like it just makes more sense.
What do you do?
So I'm a realtor, but trying to do wholesale too. So I'm a realtor with Lund and Eric Vodicka. We're like the official partner, like the Dallas Cowboys, Rangers, PGA. We have a few different offices. So we have one in Frisco, Wall, Dallas, Preston, and Cross too. So
That is awesome.
yeah.
So how long have you been doing it for?
I got my license a year ago, so
That is awesome.
24.
Yes.
So yeah, and then wholesale. I've been knowing about wholesale for some time. Actually, I knew more about like the real estate investing side before I actually decided to also get my license to become an agent. I had worked for like a women's real estate investors program, like a mentorship program.
Okay.
So that was a couple of years ago. So I saw a lot of like behind the scenes. It was one of those things where I was working and doing more so like admin work, but also watching and listening to all like mentorship deals. That they would charge people like $20,000 on this.
And you were there. So I'm right? Isn't it crazy
Yeah,
how it
so
works?
I was multitasking, doing the work, and then also just learning and teaching myself going through because we had access to all of that stuff.
That is so awesome.
But I would love to exchange contact information with you.
You hear it from?
It should work.
Do you use Blink at all?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's the number one app. Get Blink.
Okay.
So, did you scan his QR code?
I did.
Did it take you to the app? Okay. That would be your number one app.
What's your name? Oh, sure. Is that what you're using, Blake?
Everybody's using it. Probably 95% of this room has it. Get it? And then you create your own. Shoot me a text.
Okay.
Let's do this. You're gonna get to meet that.
Okay.
I get it. I get it. No worries.
Are you posting this? Or
No, it's for us. I like to save my contacts with pictures because I'm not good at names, but I will never forget a face.
Yeah. Always be able to put like the name of the
Oh yeah.
But yeah, anyone that ever is interested in buying, selling, or even has questions about the market.
Yes. So
Because I have access to them.
my customer, a lot of my customers, like our main customers, are selling their 3,000, 2,000, 4,000 square foot homes to get these done. So a lot of them like, well, I need to sell my house first.
Are they like going into retirement?
A lot of them.
Gotcha. Because I worked in wealth management for a while in sales. It was a wealth management retirement planning firm. So a lot of the clients that I had, they were going into retirement, and a lot of them wanted to downsize.
Yes.
So like I called him.
It's insane. Yeah, shoot me a text. I didn't get you. There you go. I'll send you that picture.
That's actually pretty smart to take a picture of this number.
Yes, Gloria, and we'll be in touch for sure. Like we do have a lot of customers like that.
Yeah.
And you can do anywhere in Texas.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you. It's good to talk to more people.
Well, the kids teaching us.
Yeah, because I've never been in sales, I'm a nurse, okay? And so this is different. I really want to get out.
Are you Michael? Okay. I wanted to make sure we got the.
All right.
Did you open it up? It should.
All right, everybody, we're about to start the second session.
You look clean, man.
All right, so we got Michael here. He's going to talk about a number of things, but most importantly, he's going to talk about short sales and the nuances around short sales and how we can benefit as investors to utilize this exit strategies to help sellers. We thought it would be great to have Michael speak about this because, you know, obviously the market has shifted dramatically relative to, 3 to 5 years ago, right? A lot of people who bought their homes 5 years ago trying to sell now is very difficult because they haven't, like I said, accumulated enough equity in order to be able to sell and still be able to make money, right? Because, the market has shifted, the value of the homes have gone down significantly. So Michael's going to talk to us about how do we have these conversations with certain leads and how do we ultimately help them out so that we can benefit as well. So.
Right, thank you. So I'm excited about this. Zach asked me to do this a couple of weeks ago, and I was actually very surprised. I've been enjoying these meetings. I've been coming pretty much all year, and I'm always happy to see some familiar faces here. We've had some great speakers. When he asked me about that, I thought, well, is this something I could talk about? Well, actually, yes. There's actually a lot that I think would be valuable for people to know. I'll tell you a little bit about me in a moment, but what I want to do with this time is I want this to be about you and your business. So I'd like this to be as interactive as possible. I'd like to get some real life examples from you, and as always, I want to engage with your questions, okay? If you have a situation that you've been dealing with yourself personally or with your team, maybe we can talk about that, okay? All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is a hypothetical situation which might be a sore subject for someone in this room. And if it is, I'd like to hear about it. So suppose in April 2025, you had a perfect deal. You thought you had the numbers right, you did the due diligence, you figured out how much rehab was going to take in order to do this. You open up title, and as often happens in Texas, compared to other states in the United States, we foreclose very quickly. So there needs to be 20 days before the auction is posted in order for before that can happen. And then it has to be posted 21 days before the auction itself. And that's what I've heard. I've actually seen it. I don't know how it happens, but sometimes they do pop up faster than that. So we do foreclose very aggressively. And so a lot of times the people who come to us, they're like, it's not like a couple months away where we have a lot of runway to deal with it. We've got to figure out something now. So someone comes to us and we open up title on it, and there's a loan that they didn't even know about. And if you were to take this loan into consideration, you would not make money on this deal. Has anyone had this happen to them before? All right, you want to tell us about it? Tell us about one that.
I think one was like a child support loan that was like just huge. That didn't come up to the last day of closing. But it's always just some like really.
It's like
just odd
you're kidding. Like, how can this be?
Yeah.
How can this be? And
it always
it
used to
can
be on the last day too.
stupendous.
So like always the day of closing, it seems like it gets figured out.
Yep. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of money, and it can happen very quickly. A not uncommon situation. A very common reason why foreclosures happen. It's not the most common, but when someone dies, okay, no one is making payments anymore, or if it's reverse mortgage, the mortgage is due when that happens. The family may not know all the ramifications of that, and the bank comes to foreclose. And if there's a surviving partner, it could be the partner who passed away was taking care of all the finances. I see this multiple times. The other person doesn't know like where the bank accounts are. They didn't know that there was this other lien on the house. I'm talking to a buyer, like, how can they not know that there was this lien there? Well, they don't. They don't. We actually discover it when we go through title. So anyway, in a situation like this, what happens? I was talking not too long ago to a couple in Forney, and she said that they had been working with a real estate agent to sell their house before it went into foreclosure. And then they just stopped all of a sudden. I was like, well, why is that? I knew it was a situation where it was like this. There was a lot of debt on the house. So I went into the MLS and I found the previous agent, and I called her up and said, I see that you had this listed, and then it was just canceled after about a month. Why did that happen? And she remembered it. She said, oh yeah, there was too much debt on the house. It couldn't be sold. Okay, so that's a not uncommon problem. And the thing that we're finding is that for many years, short sales have not been as common an occurrence in our economy as they were in the past. So if you talk to someone who was active in real estate in the late 1980s, short sales were happening all the time. I mean, just about everything you did was a short sale. In the great financial crisis in 2008, there were a lot of short sales. And in that era, there was such an influx of houses that were underwater. The banks were giving them away for 30 cents on the dollar. They just didn't want these houses to come into their inventory where they had to deal with the squatters, the lawn maintenance, the code violations. They didn't want it, so they were literally giving them away. And we're going to talk about this. This is becoming an increasing problem in our economy, in our society today. Okay, so here's the question. Can we go next? Okay, the house we were just talking about. If the house gets foreclosed on, will it be worth more before the auction or after the auction? Well, let's go to the next slide. It actually depends, right? So if the highest and best use for that house is for an investor to buy it, if you're looking at a house and someone says, you know what, there's an extra $100,000 on that house, I'd like you to come up on your price $100,000. Would you do that? No, no one is going to do that. The market drives what the value is, not what the debt on the house is. Okay? So if a lender is facing a situation where, okay, if we take this thing back, we're going to have to figure out something on our own to get it sold. And then we're going to have to deal with all those other problems. Okay? If someone can make a business case that this is what the house is actually worth, this is all it's going to be sold for, and we can get it done for you before you take it back, they may be willing to talk shop with you. Okay? I have some assistants who live in El Salvador, and they were telling me that they've been doing short sales with me, and so they've seen a lot of cases. They say in our country this is unheard of. Okay, they just, if the bank wants to foreclose, they just come in and swoop in and they just take it back. We have a system here where there can be some workout options that are actually, ideally they're a win-win for everybody. It's better for the lender, but especially it's better for the borrowers. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the benefits to the seller of the house. Okay. All right. So here is the problem that we're dealing with right now. Can everyone read this? This is kind of small. Let's talk about some of the things that have been happening just in the last couple of years. Does anyone remember what it was like to buy a house in 2021, 2022? Where like there was a showing at a house, there was like a line around the block. And there was like a lottery system to see if you, I mean, it's just a house, right? People were paying a large amount of money above the listing price so they could get this house. Okay, there were some artificial reasons, I guess, why the market was doing that. Okay, now think about this. If you bought the house with an FHA loan, which allows you to buy the house with basically 97%. There's also the option of getting a down payment assistance loan, okay, for the remaining 3%. You could actually buy a house with no money out of pocket, okay? Suppose you did that at the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022, and then some financial problems happened in your life, okay? I talked to people who have been executives, they've been professionals, they got sick, or there was a divorce, and things that they never thought they would be dealing with in their lives have come crashing down on them, okay? They don't have a lot of wiggle room, okay? So that house they bought here is now worth this. The house could be in a community where there's a lot of new builds going on, and so when they try to sell the house, they can either buy this house or the new house from D.R. Horton down the road, where there's all these buyer incentives, right? So they're in a situation now where how are they going to sell their house? How can they sell their house in such a way to cover their debt, okay? Let's see. The other thing, has anyone noticed what's happened to their insurance payments recently, whoever owns a house? So, like for me, it was about $200 a month, okay, was the increase. That's pretty common. For someone who is right on the edge, $200 a month is a lot of money. I mean, people are starting to get stretched pretty thin. Inflation has been increasing, and so whether you're renting or whether you're in a house, these expenses are affecting a lot of families. Okay, so one of the things that I want to emphasize today, I mean, we're all in this. We all have reasons why we got into real estate and reasons why we take satisfaction out of it. One of the things that I really enjoy about this is the opportunity to make a difference for people. So I was a software engineer most of my career. Any other IT people in the room? Okay. When I was in IT, no one ever broke down in tears and told me how I had changed their life. That's happened to me twice in the last month. Okay, so this is an important service. It's a way to make money, and it's a way to remove obstacles. But there's a very important human aspect of this, and I hope that I can make that clear today. All right. So let's talk about some things that are going on in the United States right now. I was actually talking with Patrick about this last month. This is the end of 2024. When I talk about an FHA loan, FHA is a kind of loan that you can get from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, okay? Is typically for entry-level people who are getting a house for the first time, and it gives them an opportunity to get a house with relatively little money down, okay? Right now, about 11% of these are in default, meaning they are 3 months or more behind, okay? A larger number are behind, and this is old news. It was already trending up at that time. VA loans are another highly leveraged type of loan. It's not as serious there, but it's pretty close to 5%. Between these two, it's about 1.3 million households. Okay, so this is a minority of all the lenders in the United States, of all the borrowers, but it's a trend. Okay, the thing that I am most concerned about is this bottom figure here. A loan modification, and I'll just explain this briefly. A loan modification is an opportunity where someone can take their existing loan, and if they're behind, they can do something with the arrears, and they can change the terms of the loan. Okay, and so if the bank agrees to do this, they will get off their back and they'll let them go forward with these new terms, okay? FHA is a program that insures loans, okay? So if the loan gets behind or something, the government says, okay, if you have a loss, we'll insure you, we will pay you the difference, okay? And the thing we were just talking about at the beginning, that extra loan that popped up at the end, a very common one we're finding is what's called a partial claim, okay? That's where, say someone was, I mean, I see people are like $80,000 behind. Like, try to get your head around that, $80,000 behind. The government will pay that off, and that becomes a zero interest loan, and then there's some new terms, and they're given those, okay? The thing that I'm pointing out here is that when someone does this, they're in financial distress, and the lenders are actively trying to do this because it creates a more valuable asset for the lender, okay? When someone does a loan modification, the common strategy is that whereas before they had a 30-year loan, it becomes a 40-year loan, okay? We're actually getting back to 40-year loans. I talked to a lady recently. She had a $5,000 a month payment. Okay. Couple was going through a divorce. She was a school teacher. She couldn't afford that. Okay. She was offered a $4,000 a month restructure. Okay. And I was looking at this with her and broke it down. And how much of that $4,000 a month do you think was going to principal for her? About $100 a month. She would literally be better off if she rented, okay? So I won't get off on a political tangent here, but the lenders, there are some things that have been done in recent years that are questionable. So there are things where, if you're familiar with the term forbearance, okay, it was marketed as a consumer relief package, okay? They're marketing it as a way to do somebody a favor. What they do is they say, you know what? For 6 months, you don't have to pay your mortgage. Oh, great, I'm out of work. That's fantastic. I don't have to pay my mortgage for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, they put their hand out, the lender puts out their hand and says, everything you were supposed to pay for the last 6 months, it comes here now. It's all due, and we will not allow you to make any other payments until this is paid off. People are literally being driven into foreclosure for that reason. Okay, so when I see these loan modifications at this level, this is an effort by the banks to kind of sweep a problem under the rug. Okay, it might be valid, right? Because if everyone were to lose their house at once, that would be a problem. But we've really just been kicking the can down the road. Okay, this is not something that was solved. We've just delayed it. Any thoughts or questions about what I've been talking about so far? Yes.
Is this next part you're about to go into the result of the kicking, what that means for when everyone's finally affording these things new?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So one of the things, exactly right. So one of the reasons that there's so many short sales right now is exactly this. Like, if someone had, for example, an FHA loan, they got $70,000 behind, that loan doesn't go away, right? That's still there. That has to be paid off. In fact, because the federal government is behind that loan, they want it paid first. They want to be first in line when that is paid off. So yes, thank you. All right, let's go next. All right, so let's talk about what a short sale is. So sometimes I get calls from people and I tell them about short sales. And a short sale is not, we can close with cash in 2 weeks, we make it as easy and simple as possible for you. That's not what a short sale is. There's nothing short about a short sale. Here is basically what needs to happen for it to occur. The total of all encumbrances on a property exceeds its as-is market value. Now we'll talk about this in a moment. When you look at the house as is, if it were put on the market, what could you actually get for that house? Okay, that's what the lender is going to want to know. What can we get for this house if we were to put it on the market? The next thing is the borrower is facing a financial hardship. Okay? Financial hardship could be unemployment, it could be sickness, it could be a divorce, the death of a spouse, things of that nature, okay? They need to, so situation I encountered recently, there was a divorcing couple. They wanted to do a short sale, and it seemed very reasonable up front. Turns out he had $400,000 of cash that he was taking with him. So the lender is going to look at that and say, no, we're not going to take the loss, you take the loss, okay? If the people don't have any money, if they can't pay it off, if their finances will not allow them to do this, what are we going to do, right? So you're not going to squeeze blood out of a turnip. So it's now a business decision that we need to do something different, okay? The other thing that's important is the borrower has been fair with the loan servicer throughout the entire experience. So sometimes people come to me and they've been playing games, like they've been serial bankruptcy filers over the years. They've been, and the lender is just tired of dealing with them. Okay? And so sometimes then I've actually had it happen where we get to the point, we do the submission, it goes to the servicer, it goes to the investor, and the investor says, heck no, we're not even gonna consider this, we're foreclosing. They can either pay up everything right now, or we're foreclosing. Okay, yes, question?
Like, yeah, I was just going to say, don't you find that sometimes there's such a thing as too much distress? Because in the way that, you know, you've got someone who is a serial mortgage pay, you know, they if they don't pay their mortgage, they don't pay their credit cards, they're just, you know, a serial dodger of financial responsibility.
Right.
And then they can rack up 30, 40, 50 grand in arrears.
Yes.
Now, while they've been doing that, they've been neglecting the property as well. So the property's fallen into disrepair. So, you know, at what point does the investor just go, there's no way it's that you can help this person because there's no money left in it for them, for the investor?
You mean if the house itself is in such disarray?
The circumstances are just beyond, you know, they're just beyond help.
You know,
Does
so
that happen?
it will be the lender's problem eventually anyway, right? So
Yeah.
one of the first short sales I ever dealt with was a man. He was living in the house where his mother had died. There was no will, but he was the heir of this house. There was no insurance on the house. A friend lit a fire accidentally in the house. 2 months later, the house was destroyed. There was, I mean, when I say destroyed, it was like devastated. It was like not just burned out, it was like flat. And there was a $200,000 reverse mortgage on the house. No insurance. No insurance. So it's the lender's problem. I mean, whether it's now or later, it's still going to be a problem for them.
At that point, it just take a loss then. It's just an end.
Well, you would think so. You would think so. In this case, they did kind of put up a fight a little bit. Yeah, they did. Yeah. You know, to your point, Andrew, something that maybe we don't realize until we're actually in that situation. A lot of times the lender is the beneficiary of an insurance policy. Okay, that's by design. If someone is behind on their payments and there's a leak in the roof and they wanted to do some repairs and use insurance to do that, it is not inconceivable that the money that comes from the insurance company will go straight to the bank instead. So the bank will actually skim the money, the insurance proceeds for themselves. Okay, and so it's kind of a vicious cycle, right? They get behind, they're financially unable to keep up, and as a result of that, they can't keep the house up. The system is actually designed to protect the lender, and it just keeps going that way. Okay.
Like, I think what I'm coming at it more from the investor's approach, because
yes,
you know, there's a sweet spot for this, isn't there? Because you,
right.
you know, if you're targeting foreclosures, then obviously you're looking at sub 2. But then if someone's 12 months, 24 months in arrears, it's not a feasible deal for the investor.
Oh no,
to
actually,
stop the foreclosure that way. Because they're going to have to bring the money, they're going to have to reinstate the mortgage.
Right. So you're saying
money out of pocket.
So what you're saying is, like, suppose it's $80,000 of arrears, right?
Yeah.
To reinstate the
Yeah.
loan. This is no longer a sub 2 deal.
Right. Yeah.
This is no longer a sub 2 deal because the return on investment
Yeah.
will be different. Yeah. So very, very good point. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions there?
What would you do in that case, though?
What's that?
When you have that deal like that, you just can't do nothing.
No, so we're talking about it now. We're talking about it now. I have gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars of basically loan forgiveness for people. So basically, the loan is forgiven. So that's what we're actually talking about. Yes.
What percentage of a loan value does it go from a sub 2 to a short sale?
You know, it's actually a different problem. So in some cases,
how much in the rears do they have to be percentage wise before, like you were saying, now it's, oh, you said this is no longer a sub two deal with the short sale.
So I would say they're actually apples and oranges. So here's for example, okay? There are some people, when what is owed on a house, when the house is upside down, there are some people who actually, their model is to buy the house subject to, because their plan is to hold the house for 20 years, okay? And it's got a good payment. And they figure that by that time, it will have been a okay investment, okay? So the arrears is what it needs to be solved right now in order to stop the foreclosure. And that is what matters for the subject to, okay? Then there's the rest of the loan, which is what is relevant when we're talking about a short sale. Okay, so, and everything else that is attached to the property as well. I was given an opportunity recently. There was a property, I'm not exactly sure where it was, but it was basically for $30,000 releasing a second lien on the house, paying off a second lien, so that the rest of it could close, and then a month later I'd get $34,000 back. So I mean, it was just a slight payoff, but short turnaround. So, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, let's go on. All right. So here are some issues, like if someone is approached with this, what is the benefit to the seller for doing this, okay? One of the benefits is the loan forgiveness part. Like, I mean, it just boggles my mind. Like, to have $100,000 or more, I mean, there can be, in a little tiny property, there can be $1 million of debt on that property. It's incredible. But it doesn't matter how much is owed on the property. It's what is the property worth, okay? To be able to get this kind of loan forgiveness for someone is significant for them, and that's something they need to understand. It is also a much softer landing for their credit than a foreclosure. When a foreclosure takes place, future lenders will look at that. It stays on their credit nominally for 7 years, although there are ways to accelerate that. It stays on their credit, and when a future lender looks at them, they say, well, they just basically let this happen, that they were helpless, they just walked away, okay? There's no difference. When someone does a short sale, the lender can see that they were proactively trying to solve the problem, and it's a much less of a bump on their credit, and it resolves itself much more quickly, okay? Going back to what we were talking about a while ago with the reverse mortgage, so if someone has died, you can't even really talk about, well, it's helping their credit, okay? They don't care anymore. But a lot of times for the family, there's this sense of, you know, it bothers them that the bank came in and just took back their loved one's house. They want a feeling like they're doing something dignified. They want to make sure the house gets sold, and that they have some control over it. When someone is doing a short sale, they are maintaining control over the outcome, whereas if they just let it foreclose, they lose all control, okay? If some people are asking about my shirt, one of the ways that you can stop a foreclosure is to initiate a workout option. Can we go to the next slide? Which of these, so this is a house that some of us might live in. Let's move to the next house. Okay, this is another example of a house. Which of these can be a short sale? Both. Either one of them can have that, okay? It's a matter of what is the as-is value of the property compared to what is owed on it, okay? All right. These are some examples of the things that can be attached to the property, okay? We won't go into detail with a lot of them, but I think all of us know mortgage payoffs. Does everyone know the difference between a mortgage balance and a mortgage payoff? So when you get a statement from your lender, there will be a number on there that says this is how much is owed on the property. Okay, that's something to get out of a statement. When the house is going into foreclosure, there can be other things going on, like they're paying a team of attorneys to foreclose on the house. They're literally paying them to work against them to foreclose on their house. Okay? There can be lender-imposed insurance premiums that are put on the house. There's late payments. There's late fees. Okay, so what is the payoff may actually be a larger number than what is on the statement. We were talking earlier about partial claims. So the most common place to see that is with FHA loans. Recently, the VA, so VA loans started doing partial claims, where you have this zero interest loan that is kind of attached separately. As of a week ago, Thursday, I believe that has been discontinued. So it existed only for a short time. And then there are other things on there as well, okay? IRS liens, this is a very interesting thing. IRS liens, the IRS will generally not be too accommodating if you want to say, you know what, I talked to someone recently who owed 6 digits in back taxes on his IRS. The IRS wasn't just going to let that go away, okay? But you can do what's called a release, where you take it off the house, okay? He's still responsible for it, but it's not something that has to be completely resolved at the time the house is sold, okay? They may do a partial release. So in that situation, the person won't get any money at closing, but at least you can finish the deal, okay? Credit card judgments, just had this recently. Did you know that you live in a state with some of the strongest homestead protections in the United States? If a credit card company tries to attach to your house and it is your homestead, within 30 days, they have to get it off of there if you apply. Okay, so if they're saying, we're not going to let you close, I mean, I just had one. There were 2 credit cards, they wanted $52,000. We just laughed at them and said, nope, can't do it. It's actually in the Texas state constitution. They can't do that. Okay, so these are examples of encumbrances. Okay. These are hardships. We've talked about these before. Having insufficient reserves. Let's go on to the next one. So, going back to the example from the beginning here, a distressed property, suppose it has $350,000 ARV, and it's got $260,000 in loans, and we decided earlier that there was going to be $70,000 in rehab that's done on this. That would no longer be a deal, right? But the loan servicer says that as long as they get $176,000 at closing, they're good. They settle, okay? At this point, it becomes a deal for the investor again, okay? Has anyone's brain exploded yet? Okay, yes.
When you're going in, you're speaking with the bank a lot of, some of the problems that I've run into is when we're dealing with the seller's agent that's representing the bank, I've actually had to just go around that person and say, get this, and just start dealing directly with the bank. And I had to explain to them, look, I was over loss mitigation already. I know what you're telling me is a bunch of baloney.
Yes.
And I pissed off one person, and I told them up front, it's better to be pissed off than pissed off. But you know, I wasn't gonna go through that, and I told my assistant in the office, she was very frustrated, and she was almost in tears. And once I got to the bank, I started talking about the actual numbers, and I said, hey, look, we're not gonna pay this, we're not gonna do this. Then I went back in the bank and charged the 7 to 8%. Then I know that you can charge for doing the representation to get the deal done.
Yeah. You know, I had situation recently where I was dealing with a representative, like they were requiring us, this was not an investor deal, this was a retail deal, okay? So it was on the market, and they required it to be at a price that no one could buy it at. And I explained this to her. The representative I talked to said, no, it's got to be at this price. We got it appraised. So I actually, bless my little heart, I went to straight to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and I disputed this, and we got it down $20,000, and we got it sold. And she came back to me and said, I've never heard of someone doing this before. Like, I don't know how this happened. Well, so there are ways. Okay, let's go next. I guess I got to hurry up a little bit. So this comes down to the appraisal again. So when we looked at those houses earlier, there was the beautiful house and the not quite as beautiful house. What it boils down to is the bank is going to hire someone to appraise the house and figure out how much it's worth. They're in New York City, they're not here, they're in an office. They need someone to give them, hopefully, an unbiased third-party opinion of what the house is worth. They will also leverage real estate agents for giving them what's called a broker price opinion. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter how much, well, technically it doesn't matter how much is owed on the property because no buyer cares. The market is really what gives value to the property. It's not what is owed on it, okay? All right. All right, so we've talked about this also. Technically, a house does not need to be scheduled for foreclosure in order to be a candidate for a short sale. Unfortunately, especially here in Texas, that's, it's posted on the website of the county. That's when everyone starts jumping on them and saying, we'll buy your house for cash, put it under contract for a certain price, and then they find out there's this much debt on it, they can't do it anymore, right? Historically, if a short sale application is submitted 37 or days more before the auction, they are required to review it, okay? They're required to review it. There was, and still is technically, a branch of the US government called the CFPB. It was basically disbanded in February, and then a federal judge just kind of resurrected it in kind of a zombie form. But there was a point they were trying to work towards this year where you could apply for a short sale one day before the auction, and you could stop it. They would be required to review it. So if they accept it for short sale, then that will stop the foreclosure, okay? Are there other ways that you are aware of to stop a foreclosure? What are some of your favorite ways to stop a foreclosure auction? Yes? Bankruptcy, okay?
Restraining order.
Restraining order, temporary restraining order, yep, TRO. Yes?
Some too, but as long as the circumstances make it feasible.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Very good. One thing, a tip that I'll give you, we were talking about loan modifications earlier. So there are the workout options that a lender will accept can be, we talked about a forbearance, we talked about loan modification, there's a short sale, and there's also something called deed in lieu of foreclosure, okay? Of all those options, the loan modification is like super popular right now with the lenders. In fact, just in the last 2 months with an FHA loan, when we start the process, they actually want to get on the phone with the borrower and have an interview with them and try to talk them into doing a loan modification. And if they're not going to do a loan modification, they want them to sign in writing that they don't want a loan modification. Why do they do this? Because it's more money for the lender. It makes them look really good. It makes their portfolio look really good. It is not necessarily in the best interest of the seller, but it can be, a case-by-case situation. Yes?
Can you speak in more detail about the loan mod and how it's not necessarily sometimes it's not beneficial to the seller? Let's say they bought a house.
Yeah.
In 2020 when rates were extremely low.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves in some hardship 5 years down the line, where interest rates are now up. Can you speak to the detail around what happens in that loan mod?
Yeah.
How
So,
the payment changes?
it's really interesting. So when they got the loan mod, interest rates were here. I was talking this week to someone, when she got her loan mod, her monthly payments went up $1,500. So if she was struggling with the loan mod before, how has that helped her, right? But what it can do, if you're working on this, if they will accept this as an application for a loan modification, it may help them to delay the foreclosure, and then you can do other things with that, okay? They may switch gears and go into a short sale at that point, okay? All right. Let's see. Submitting the paperwork. So the first part, well, it's a short sale is actually fairly labor intensive. Okay, so I just want to let you know with your team or with you individually, if you are looking at doing this, I'm happy to meet with your team and present something similar to what we're doing here so that other people on your team can understand it. Maybe you can designate some member of your team that you don't especially like to do some of this. But there's an element of this where I would almost call it a social work piece. So when someone is applying for a loan, they want to know their income, their bank statements, they want to see their tax returns, yada, 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 right? That's how they qualify for a loan. Banks are very accommodated at this stage. At this stage, they're not as happy, and they need the same kind of information. They want to know the income, they want to know their cash reserves, and they want to know what's on their tax statements. In fact, they also want a form that allows them to contact the IRS to make sure that the tax statements are not fraudulent. Okay? And they have no problem at all if there is something not filled out on page 3, and there was a deadline to get this paperwork filled in by this date, and page 3 was missing one thing. They will cancel the application and you're back in foreclosure. So they can be very picky about this, okay? One thing I'll mention here, listing agreement. This is something that kind of is a mind stretch for investors. The house has to be put on the MLS, okay? This does not mean that you are kicked out of the deal, and you can even be first in line. As long as your offer meets the lender's requirements, you still have a viable opportunity to do it, okay? The real estate agent who lists it, normally we have a seller who pays that real estate agent. In this case, the seller is not allowed to receive any money or to give any money in the transaction. The bank will pay the real estate agent. So you as the investor, you are not going to be paying a real estate agent for this, okay? Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Sometimes to get the short sale process started, they give a ridiculously short time frame and we need an offer. Well, that offer can be an investor offer, even in a retail house, okay? This can be an opportunity. I mean, one strategy some investors have is they just put offers out there, right? This is one thing that if they can provide an offer that they could actually perform at, that is something that could be used to start the short sale process, okay? So you can either take short sales from the approach of, I've already got a deal, I'm trying to fix it, or you can take it from the perspective, somebody else has a problem, and I'm going to jump in and make my offer and I'm going to run with it after that, okay? The lender needs to approve the offer. So this is different than other things. it's not uncommon for a short sale to take several months. Okay, so this is a different kind of vibe, a kind of different rhythm than most of the deals we as investors are accustomed to. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, appraisers. Okay, the appraisal is very important in getting this thing done. I kid you not, I have seen this on appraisals. The appraiser speculated that the siding could be replaced for $1,000. Okay, have you ever seen that done before? Or, you know, just unrealistic numbers, they don't know. And so something that is very useful is to have one, preferably two, independent contractor bids that shows this is what it's actually going to take to get this thing across the finish line. Okay, and you'll give that to them at the time of the appraisal. Unlike a normal house sale where you want the appraised value to be as high as possible, in this case, we want it as low as possible, because the lower, the easier it will be to sell, and the more beneficial it is for you as the investor. Okay, because this determines what the bank is willing to settle for. Okay? Next. What's that? 3 minutes, okay. All right. All right. Some of these are other details. Let's jump to the end. Go next. Okay, here's some differences, okay? Go one just before that. All right. When you're working with lenders, they are very much in a hurry up and wait kind of mode. They will make you bend over backwards to do some kind of arbitrary deadline, and then they will sit on it for months. In particular, right now, they are very short-handed. If you've been following the news, so HUD has had about 50% of its staff laid off. 85% of the department that deals with homelessness has been laid off. Okay? So we're finding, you know, it takes them a while to respond. Zach, let's go to the next one. Here's the big difference. This is the biggest reason that it's a challenge. You all know what it's like to deal with someone who is like in a foreclosure situation in the few weeks before the house is sold. I mean, sometimes it can be challenging. They're in a great sense of distress. They're stressed. Now you have to be able to get them to join with you for a few months to get this thing finished, okay? So communication is important. Okay. All right. So again, this is kind of where I started. This is an important function in our society. We all need, at some point in our lives, a fresh start. If you understand this, you can save deals that you would have just thrown away, and you can make them profitable for yourself. But you can also know that you are helping someone, and it's doing a service to the greater economy, because this helps prevent other problems that would ripple through the economy. So yeah, that's it. Let's go to the next slide. Any final questions? Yes.
On the appraisal, is there a percentage typically that the banks will like not go under an accepted offer?
Yes. So it depends on the kind of loan. So an FHA loan, they typically will start out with 88% of the appraised value. That's what they need in their net. Okay. After a month, it drops down to 86%. And after another month, it goes down to 84%. Okay. With a reverse mortgage, they're just looking for the purchase price to be at least 95% of the appraised value. Okay, so that's what they're looking at. Okay. Any other questions?
Let's give it up for Michael.
All right, let's go.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Michael. His contact information is on the screen. Be sure to clean up behind yourselves. We're pushing up on time. I appreciate everyone for coming out. We're going to be in Fort Worth on the first Saturday of June. So be on the lookout for that. One last reminder, if you haven't already, join the free Facebook group. We'll put in our announcements in there as well. So thank you guys for coming, and please clean up.
Yeah. think I just, yeah, I'll text you.
Okay, I just have like 4 minutes.
I think there's also.
You guys are doing pretty good.